to order. Lance has our agenda up on the screen, so hope everyone has a chance to has had a chance to take a quick glance at it. If anyone has any amendments they want to make to it, we can entertain those, and if not, I would hear a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And is there a second?
This is Alyssa. I second.
All right. Moved and seconded. If there's no opposition, then I think we can adopt this agenda and move on to our roll call. Oh,
Okay.
I skipped. I realized I did that out of order, but
that's okay. Chair Clouda.
I'm present.
Vice Chair Rodriguez.
Present.
Ms. Hobson.
I'm here.
Ms. Hotch. Ms. Keller.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Ms. McConnell.
I'm here.
Mr. Minor.
Present.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Then our action items that we've got today are our 2021 budget resolution and the selection of chair and vice chair. So let's see. So Lance, you had circulated the draft resolution by email, and I'm not sure if folks have had a chance to take a look at that, or maybe we should have that put that up on the screen for everyone to see.
Lila, can you do that, please? So maybe, Mr. Chairman, I could explain just as a reminder. So I put together a draft resolution that we kind of previewed at our meeting on the 5th, and then as part of that discussion, the BAC had some comments, some bullet items they would like to add. I attempted to characterize those, and they are identified in the green that I sent to you. There were some additions to what was in there. Then I sent that revised version out with the green highlights in it. I sent that out, I believe, on Monday. We have a quick turnaround. I heard some comments and some suggestions from BAC members. I highlighted those in that blue teal color. And I'd suffice it to say, I think what this resolution does is it characterizes the process that the Budget Advisory Commission went through, beginning in July when they were reviewing the the proposed budget, and the process that you took by working with departments and then sort of understanding the working environment that we are in right now in developing this budget. And then when we were talking about the budget after it was released on October 2nd, the BAC made some particular comments from the departments that they reviewed. I tried to capture the intent of what the BAC was trying to do in that draft, and then which resulted in this draft document here. And I sent it out, and hopefully BAC members have had a chance to look at it. And what I would ask the Commission to do today is affirm the additions in the green, accept or concur with the additions in blue, and then if you have additional edits, I think Lila can make those as we work through here. My desire would be to have the BAC act on this so that with the chair's approval later today, so that I can then prepare the necessary documentation so that I can get it to the Assembly for their addendum of their agenda that's due tomorrow, so that they can consider this while they're approving the budget next Tuesday. So I appreciate all of the work that you guys helped me put this together, and I hope it characterizes in general the sense that that you had. And then before I close, I did send a second resolution on the alcohol tax. And while we discussed the alcohol tax, I considered whether or not we should include this language in the budget resolution. I'm going to recommend that you do two, because you guys have had a lot more time to look at the budget itself, you've had less time to consider the S version on the alcohol tax, which I want to talk about. So my focus would be primarily on the original budget that was in the green and blue. So Lila, if you could bring that one back up, please.
Sure.
And with that,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna leave it to you and the commission members.
Sure. Yeah, please. I'd love to hear from BAC members. What do you guys think of these additions to the budget resolution? Commentary, questions, changes? I think that these capture the sentiments pretty well, personally. So I don't think I have anything that I would suggest, but others might feel differently.
This is Lindsay. I would agree with that, Nolan. I think that I unfortunately couldn't make last week's meeting, but these do capture what I think that we've discussed, especially in the meeting prior where we went, department by department and looked at these.
Yes, I think that's a good point. Other comments? Otherwise, I'm hearing that we're probably pretty close to consent on this one.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to need someone to make a motion, then a second, and then you can go from there, please.
All right.
Just so we have a recording of it.
Sure. Entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
This is Alyssa. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Alyssa. Is there a second?
This is Lindsay. I'll second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Do we need to do a full voice vote then on this, Lance?
I would ask if there's any opposition.
Okay. Is there any opposition to this resolution then from any members? Carly, you're not talking muted now, are you?
Super funny.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No, but actually, Lance, I voted a lot of board meetings, so I'm probably forgetting process. But I thought anything financial had to have a roll call. But am I getting my boards mixed up?
What we can, if the motion is to approve and then ask for objections, and then if anyone objects, then we'll do a roll call.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm just playing with you, Carla. But anything else then?
I will not be trifled with.
Sorry.
I was just playing with you. I said I will not be trifled with.
Sure. Alyssa?
Oh no, I was just repeating what Carla had said in case you couldn't hear her.
Okay. All right then. I think the resolution passes, right?
We hear of no objection, so it'll passed as written. And Mr. Chairman, what we'll do is I'll take the highlighted sections off. I will ask Lila to send it to you. We're going to ask you to sign it electronically and then send it back to us, and we will advance it to the assembly for their consideration.
Very good, very good. And I really appreciate the work you, Lance and Lila, in drafting this for our review. So thank you very much. I know you guys carry the weight of getting these done. So thank you.
Yep. Our pleasure.
Then I believe that our next item then is, I think, our selection of chair and vice chair. Or should we move on? Or should we do the? We're not quite ready on the alcohol tax yet until right. So,
thanks, Lila.
So, yeah. So the procedure here. So I've been chair now for 2 years, and rather than I decided, I by custom, and I don't know if the rules per se say that I shouldn't serve another chair, but I am stepping down. I don't want to FDR the Budget Advisory Commission and keep attempting more terms. But so I think, Lance, our process for this is to hear any nominations for starting with chair, and then we do the same thing with vice chair, and then we vote on both together. Is that right?
You are correct.
Or separately? Okay.
You are correct. Individually, please.
Good, good. Then I think the floor is open to nominations for the next chair. And I would like to make a nomination if I'm able to. I think I am procedurally. Is that right?
Yes.
Then I would like to nominate Alyssa Rodriguez then as chair, and I don't know if there's a second for that.
Oh, seconded.
Thank you, Jonathan. If there are other nominations, I think does anyone have any others that they would put forward?
This is Carla through the chair. Is there anyone interested in vice chair? I would be happy to consider a nomination if I mean, not me consider a nomination. I mean, nominating one of you if someone has some interest. Jonathan.
Carla, I appreciate that. Let's get through the chair first, and then,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's all good. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Jonathan, it gives him 3 minutes to think about it.
Okay.
Sure. Other nominations for Budget Advisory Commission chair.
And I meant that towards chair also, sorry. I just didn't know if anybody else was interested. We never really discussed it.
Thank you. Not hearing any other nominations for chair. Nominations for vice chair.
Hold on, let's vote on the chair, please.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, then Alyssa Rodriguez.
Can we ask Alyssa, is she willing to serve?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I didn't want to speak up. I didn't know if that was appropriate or not. Yes, I appreciate the nomination. I'd be more than happy to serve as the chair.
I didn't know that she had a choice, but thank you, Alyssa. Then a vote on Alyssa as chair. Any opposition? Hearing none, then I think Alyssa is our chair.
Congratulations, Alyssa.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I think that it takes effect starting with our next meeting, correct?
You can do it that way, yes. If that's the way you want to do it, yes.
Sure. Then now we can open up the floor to nominations for vice chair.
I would like to.
Lindsay,
Oh, so
go.
sorry. Nope, please go ahead, please.
I was just going to reiterate what Carla had suggested with Jonathan. Nominate Jonathan.
I will happily be Alyssa's understudy, but also very happy not to be chair.
So I have a motion from Lindsay. I need a second from someone, please.
This is Carla. I second.
Thank you, Carla.
Okay, got a nomination then moved and seconded for Jonathan. Is there anyone else that wants to put forth a nomination? All right, doesn't sound like it. So Jonathan King as vice chair for the Budget Advisory Commission. Any opposition? Well, then hearing none, it sounds like we have our new chair and vice chair, Melissa Rodriguez and Jonathan King. So thank you guys both for being willing to serve and for stepping up.
Congratulations, Jonathan.
Congratulations to both of you. It's going to be good.
Thank you.
And
Although I was kind of hoping.
Thank you for your service, Nolan. Really, you've done a wonderful job for 2 years.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that. Thank you, Nolan.
Thank you all. It's been a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed it. So thank you for allowing me to serve. But then our next step then, I think we have Assembly Member Suzanne LaFrance on, and we can hear a report from the Assembly. And I don't know
Thanks,
if
Noah.
Cameron is on. Oh yeah, just Suzanne. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thanks. I was trying to put my camera on to say hello, but I don't think it's. Oh. Oh my gosh, the background. Sorry. Hey, hi everybody, and just want to echo congratulations to Alyssa and Jonathan in your new roles, and thanks to Nolan for serving as chair, and thanks to all of you for your service on the commission. And I know you're professionals with day jobs and you have families. So thank you very much for all the time that you put into serving. Very much appreciated, especially with the special meetings and all the attention to the budget. So I know Lance gave a really great report last time, and I'll just highlight a few things. And then if any of you have questions, we can go from there. A reconsideration of AO 2020-117S. This is the one on the providing relief for business personal property tax. It had failed 5-5 at the last meeting, and it's being reconsidered now on the 17th. There were problems with the initial version. It added staff. There are still problems with the S version. The amount is unknown, and there are a couple of us who are working on an amendment per the administration's recommendations to have a grant program instead. So this discussion will be on Tuesday's meeting, the 17th. There's also a special meeting on Monday, the 16th, and that's specifically for the emergency orders. Some of you probably you already know that as far as special election and change in the ordinance that would have changed the date that a new mayor would be seated, both of those failed. So there won't be a special election for a new mayor. And as of now, the mayor who gets elected in the regular election will take office July 1st. COVID is definitely generating a number of emails that we're receiving, especially the emergency order changes concerning sports and athletic events. And I understand that there'll be more information from the administration that's going to be shared concerning data, concerning vectors of infection, and specifically why these changes were made. I'm getting a lot of questions from constituents about that, and definitely a lot of feedback from the hockey community. Let's see here. I think that you all have been talking about the alcohol tax, and Lance had mentioned about the different proposals. There was an assembly proposal for how to spend the funds, and then one from the administration, and we've all been working together to close that gap and come up with a single proposal. At the last meeting, we passed an ordinance that added e-cigarettes and vaping, including vaping devices sold separately, to the excise tax, the tobacco excise tax. Those products had been previously excluded, and that will result in around 800,000 or so in tax relief, since it's under the cap. I am working on an amendment with Member Constant and Member Dunbar to add some language concerning hemp products. The intent was, one, to end the exclusion of these products and bring them under the excise tax, but also, as far as health policy goes, we know that, higher costs, right? Of tobacco products correlates with keeping kids away from tobacco products. And so a big piece of this ordinance is aimed at keeping kids away from e-cigarettes and vaping. So we targeted tobacco products and specifically excluded marijuana products, and quite frankly, you know, the marijuana establishments have done a really good job with not selling to underage kids, whereas there's a known problem among some of the vaping shops. I mean, I think it's put at about 30% of the sales are to underage youths. So we definitely are only targeting the tobacco establishments, and we will hopefully add some language to specify further that any hemp retailers that are registered under Alaska Statute 0305 as hemp retailer, you know, if they're selling electronic vaping devices, those will be excluded from the tax. And I know this area of ensuring that marijuana related vaping products were not taxed was a very, very big area of concern. And then I'll just note that the school bond debt reimbursement issue, that 41 million, that will result in a tax increase of $120 per 100,000 for an average of $420 is of particular concern to a number of assembly members. And I know there are discussions with the administration on how to close that gap, but definitely that's an area of concern. I believe we have a resolution coming forth on that one as well. So I'll stop there. And again, thank you all so very much for all the time you put into serving in your roles. The feedback that we get from you is very appreciated. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Very good, excellent and thorough update. A lot going on these days at the assembly level and within the Muni. So thank you. I was relieved that we didn't have to go through a special election for mayor followed by the general election for mayor in a short time span. I don't think anyone needed to deal with that right now. So glad for the way that went. Next, let's see. I think.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please go ahead, Jonathan. Or sorry, yeah, open up for questions.
I just wanted to express through the chair and through the assembly member that their efforts on vaping products is greatly appreciated. As we all know, or perhaps we don't know, more than 1/4 of high schoolers report using vaping products in the last 30 days. And that number, that percentage has increased. It's almost doubled in the last 3 years. So I just want to say thank you to the Assembly for their work on that issue and cleaning up that loophole. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, that 30% figure that's a pretty serious number. Other questions for Assembly Member LaFrance?
Please call me Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne. So not hearing anything else then. Then I think next up on our agenda is the draft 2021 meeting calendar, and I think that's you, Lance.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Lila to bring it up. Just as I didn't ask her earlier. Oh no, she did. So we have the 21 meeting calendar. This is the first Thursday of every month. I'm gonna send it out to you. I just wanted to let you know that we are still looking at these dates. I think most of them will work. Don't know if there's any holidays that are gonna adjust these, but this will be a good starting point. We'll send this out. You guys can start working on your calendar for next year. This would not include, obviously, any special meetings that you might want to undertake and next year. So I will be sending, I'll ask Lila to send this out this afternoon just so you guys can mark your calendars.
Great, thank you.
And I think, Lila, if you could go back to the agenda. Yeah, what I should have mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is we should have adjusted the agenda to include something on the alcohol tax, and I didn't do that, but I'd like to do that now if I could, and and talk about the alcohol tax and potentially, if it's okay with the commission consider a resolution to also send to the Assembly. But before I do that, I was going to review the presentation that Chief of Staff Bockenstead shared with the Assembly last week. I obviously will not have the depth of knowledge that he does in this, but I do think that I can preview the highlights of the changes that Suzanne mentioned that the Assembly and the administration were working on. But before I do that, and I'm going to have Lila pull up the presentation, I just want to verify that Jason is not on the phone, or if he is, he's just going to be quiet and watch me do it. Jason? All right. So what I'm going to do, Mr. Chairman and members of the BAC, is I'm going to run through a presentation that I sent to you earlier this week. I also sent you a connection to a YouTube video, and it's about 50 minutes long. 40 minutes of it is the presentation. So I'm not going to run through that. Hopefully you had a chance to listen to a portion of Mr. Bockenstead's presentation. But to get us started here, did everyone receive a copy of the links? I hope that you did, and hopefully you had a chance to look at it. But I'm going to speak from the material that I sent you earlier this week. Okay? All right.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Lane.
Just to remind the members of the BAC and others that the alcohol tax, when it was passed, it had a provision that the proceeds of the alcohol tax could only be spent or should be targeted to 3 particular areas. And so these particular areas or these issues, and I think the first one, for police and first responder type of activities. The second one are those activities to combat child abuse, sexual assault, and domestic violence. And then the third sort of category of funds are those that are meant to address mental and behavioral health. So when we prepared the draft budget, we targeted most of the funds into the second and the third category in our proposal. And so with that, since, I don't know, the last 6 weeks since the budget's been released, there's been some adjustments that have been made. There's some conversations that the administration and the Assembly have had. We've heard from others. And I know the BAC, when you started your conversations with the works, we talked about it at June, and then we had a work session in June to talk about the general intent, sort of remind the BAC of what the resources, what the alcohol tax could be used for. Then we met again in July, and we had a presentation that was presented to us from some nonprofits that had the concept of a theory of change. And we heard from those individuals about where they thought the priorities were and the benefits of being more proactive rather than reactive. And the administration tried to prepare a budget that accounted for that. And the Assembly also had the same vision. And they had probably a little bit more desires to divide whatever amount of alcohol tax we might receive a little bit more evenly in these 3 categories. And so through those conversations, the administration has come forward with a revised version, shared that with the Assembly last week. So I'm going to kind of highlight what those things are. So Lila, if you could go to the next page. So this might be a little bit small, but can everyone see it? Is it big enough? Maybe Lila, you could make it a little bigger.
Yeah, I think little zooming would help maybe.
Let me see if it's behind here. There it is.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Lila.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you back up one, Lila, please? In addition, I didn't mention this, Mr. Chairman, in addition to the 3 categories where the funds can be spent, the first part of the dedication of the funds, it allows us to provide the coverage of some administrative costs of the collection, basically the taxing of it, the tracking of it, the reporting of it. So while it's not sort of the primary use of the alcohol tax does allow whatever the administrative costs to basically do the payments is allowable as well. So in the proposed version of the budget, we did include some resources for Treasury. So the allocation to Treasury is allowable. So go ahead, Lila. Next page. So what you see here is this is a format of the S version, or the document version, that the Assembly saw Thursday, that I'm going to ask you to comment on whether or not you support this preferred direction. So the first two lines are an allocation of those resources towards that administrative cost. What you see on the left are sort of those category of funds, the first one being administrative, and then first responders, and then the other two categories broken out. And then the Assembly's project description on what they had, what municipal department it might be. The Assembly had some recommendations on how much and where those dollars ought to be spent, and then the administration had a recommendation that was illustrated in the proposed budget. And then the column that starts with S version is the latest version of what the administration is now going to propose, or at least as of last Thursday, the purpose of the alcohol tax. This is what will be a substitute for basically the column that starts with administration recommendations. So reading across, there's some money in there for Treasury. There was for the law enforcement officers. There's some cost that the Assembly had proposed, which is a requirement that we have, and that's basically reporting. I think the alcohol tax requires the administration to report to the Assembly how much revenue we're getting in, where are we spending it. If at the end of the year we have any fund balance, or basically meaning we collect more than we programmed, that money would then go into a special separate fund that's identified for the alcohol tax. This education and reporting of the programs, that's what that 50,000 is for. That would be primarily administration's responsibility. So the first one is in our budget. The second one was not. We're recommending to include it. The second group here is first responders. And so right now, the Assembly had a recommendation for about $2.5 million that would be programmed for the health department. It may be a blend of the health department, the police department, and others. The administration did not include that. In the revised version, they do now. And then there's some additional resources proposed for APD personnel, and then some additional resources proposed for law enforcement as it relates to prosecution inside the law department. So the administration did not include those initially. We are doing that now. I think that's a nice addition based on the comments and the work that's been worked out between the administration and the Assembly. Then the rest of these are sort of a true up. So I'm going to move on to the homeless, mental health and substance abuse categories. This $360,000, what that is we currently have money in the health department's budget to run shelters for basically 9 months. This would create additional service to provide that for 12 months. So that is what this, this complements both what the Assembly and the administration wanted to do, so it remains. There were some changes in the day engagement center. Obviously the Assembly had some requests in there. The administration didn't at the time. I think we were looking at some support from philanthropic, and I do believe we will be receiving some of those, but there was a suggestion from the administration to move that up. For the library social worker support, both the administration and the Assembly recommended this, and I believe the reason that we didn't include it in our S version is because we programmed some CARES Act funds for this purpose in 2020, and it's not getting spent. So that funds will carry over and it will support those into 21. So that is why it's not included. The program will continue, it just won't be using alcohol tax as I understand it. The next one is year-round parks. We all agree on that one. We talked about that when we presented the budget. Parks and Rec's going to go do year-round camp cleanup. And so that's going to continue. We had a category in here, and this is where the Assembly wanted to put some dollars in for supportive housing and permanent supportive housing. The administration included a program called Pay for Success, and basically what it is, we work with a nonprofit organization that assists individuals to get to housing and supportive housing. And the Pay for Success program does that. And basically, we pay a non-provider based on the success of placing people. That's about as simple as I can say it. So it was part of our original program, and you'll see it further down. Here, year-round homeless outreach. That one's not included in my, I'm going to verify, but I believe it's because we already had funds identified through CARES that are not going to get it spent, and that will be, the program will happen. It's just not going to happen with alcohol tax. You can see some refinement in the treatment centers. Obviously, the reduction in the treatment center operations has to be with the progress that in the conversation we made with nonprofits and other entities that are going to help support that, so there won't be as much need from the alcohol tax. This $1.8 million that we proposed, the Assembly didn't have it in theirs, and this was our Pay for Success, so that continues. And then the homeless coordinator and the epidemiologist and nurses, the sum total of those about $1.5 million. Again, these resources were identified in, we had planned to put those in the alcohol tax in October. However, as the year has progressed, we had identified some CARES Act funds that are not being spent on supporting the additional nurses and an epidemiologist that are currently underway to be hired. The plan is, as I understand it, that we are going to continue those efforts into 21. We are going to use the 2020 CARES money that will carry forward into 2021. It will show up as a fund balance. We're going to continue the service, but we're not going to do it with alcohol tax. So strolling down, Lila, please, if you could scroll. Okay, and then and then on this one here, the substance abuse, really we made some changes based on some conversations with the Assembly. So we upped the amount of the evidence-based grants to providers. And then we upped the amount for early education based on our initial proposal. The last two here, at least the one for the library, the difference between the Assembly's number and our number is a true up of the actual cost of a position. The Assembly estimated at 150,000. We trued it up with benefits at 93. So that's why that number's changed. We have we have a grant that's that's going to go away that supports domestic violence and sexual assault prevention program at the health department. We can use the alcohol tax to make up for that lost payment. And so that was what the proposal is there. And then there were some additional requests from to basically administer the programs or grants that might come out of the alcohol tax. And so both the Assembly and the administration have proposed that. The difference between the two, basically our numbers being larger, is the actual cost of the positions to do it. So the bottom line is the Assembly was in their original total, they had some of the identified programs that would be not as supported with the alcohol tax. So their total number was a little bit less. Our number was 9.3. We then talked to Treasury to find out what is the projection of the alcohol tax in 21. The number is about $12.5 million total projected revenues. So the administration's S version is a little under that, not 3 million under as we originally proposed. So that is the S version of the Assembly's or the administration's proposal. The next couple slides, Mr. Bockenstead took a lot more time to sort of identify each one of the administrative costs by total amount. And so one of the things I mentioned early on, overall, the administration was trying to meet the Assembly's desire to equally allocate the total amount of dollars, whatever that might be, generally proportional to the three main areas.
Hey,
So these-
Lance,
Yeah.
sorry to jump in. Jonathan has to leave,
Okay.
and he had a couple of comments that he put into the chat. And if Jonathan, if you're there, can you vocalize that stuff? Because I know you've got some important perspectives on this.
Thank you. I'm not looking at the chat, but thank you.
Oh yeah, no worries. And we might have already lost him actually. So.
Okay.
Oh, we did. Sorry, but his points in the chat were a lot of work he just mentioned that a lot of work has gone into the structure, including input from many on-the-ground experts, not feeling a strong call to fiddle or substitute judgment, supportive of the work, and greatly appreciate the MOA and assembly and help for the health department for the use of the fund. So yeah, so good comments, Dad. But sorry, Lance, keep going.
No, thank you. I'm now looking at the chat. Okay, I think where Mr. Bockenstead was going with these slides is sort of a summation of all of the costs. So in the administrative category, there's a little more than $250,000, and we talked about what those things would be for. This is the first two columns of the first slide, the first two rows of the slide, and the last column. That's basically to operate and administrate the alcohol tax, either by collection or through administrative of grants. So roughly 250,000 would be going towards that. Lila, if you could change. So the first responder category, if you summed up the three places, it would be, there you go, about $3 million. And again, to support the mental health and first responders, some non-sworn staff and equipment related to APD's personnel and their activities in responding to domestic violence or sexual assault, or those things that might be as a result of misuse or substance abuse activities. So a little bit more money there, and then some additional resources for prosecutors and the clerk. So that was a total of about 3 million, basically, of the 12. Lila, next slide. And then in the category of sexual abuse, sexual assault, a total of about $4 million, and it's broken down in these categories here. So, and then the last slide, I will ask Lila to roll to. And that is, this is all of those categories that we talked about on mental health and substance abuse. And I think this one here, Lila, if you could scroll down to see the bottom number, it's a little more than $4 million. And so those three main categories of funding in those particular areas, I think, do three things. One, it really, I think, meets the desires of not only the assembly, but probably the community that, you know, while we're first out of the gate and using the alcohol tax, there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of need in a variety of areas. And it's possible that you could probably put all of the money in any one of these categories. But since many of these programs are just going to get started, and some of these programs are sort of in their infancy, or they're partially funded, and additional resources to expand the existing programs have been included in here. So to sort of meet that perception and the desire to sort of even out the allocation of the funds into those three categories, that in part was part of the adjustments that were made by the administration. I will say that, you know, probably 25 to 30% right out of the gate, the administration and the assembly were pretty much on the same page. The numbers may be a little bit different in another 50% of them, but we both had the same desires in mind, just reallocated the funds. Then we added some things. We added some things based on some conversations with the assembly and the community. And some things we kept, but we're not going to fund them in 21 with alcohol tax. But it's likely that in 2022 that we may have to, you know, revisit that, and those activities would be funded with the alcohol tax as we move forward. So I think this is a better reflection based on the conversations. We kind of knew that our first proposal out of the gate was going to get a lot of attention. It's going to get a lot of questions. I think the BAC included, you know, why are we spending money on nurses and epidemiologists? How does that relate to the alcohol tax? And then the health department made a case as to why that could be, and I think they made a solid case, but we also have the ability to support them with other funds, at least for next year. So we've had a lot of activity probably in the last 2 weeks, a lot of conversations with the administration and the assembly and others. And so with that, what I did is and Lila, don't change the page, but I sent a draft resolution that kind of talked about where we started, what was happened, and then a summation of this proposal. So I just asked the BAC to spend some time on this and ask questions. And if you generally think that the S version is a better approach than the original version, or you think the assemblies is better, based on what you know in your individual businesses or information that you've received in work sessions, now's the time to sort of weigh in on that. And then if you are generally acceptable, and I would suggest that as an advisory commission, look at the programs, the balance, and maybe not so much the amount, but that's totally your prerogative. So I will stop there. And maybe, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to phone a friend. And Suzanne, is there anything that I missed in the presentation that Mr. Bockenstead suggested that the assemblies caught their eye, or did I capture it relatively well?
Lance, I think you did a great job. Nothing else comes to mind right now.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
Alyssa had a comment. Do you want to just make your comment in the to the group, Alyssa?
Sure. Let me know if you guys have any trouble hearing me. So I am just thinking about alcohol consumption trends. I was curious, Lance, when you were talking about projections for 2021 and how much tax we would bring in. Do you happen to know if I would assume they do, those trends and those projections include the increase in consumption that we've been seeing? And then if we bring in even more than we were thinking, is there already a clear plan for where that money's going to go? And maybe that's something that Suzanne can speak to. Do we already know where we'll put that money when it comes in? Or if we end up with more, would that need to go to the assembly, to kind of figure out and deliberate on where we're going to spend it?
I can address both of those. And then I'll let Suzanne jump in and help me out. So the first question is the projection. The projection we used was as of September. So if we have been drinking more consumption, or there's been more consumption in the recent months, we haven't considered that. What we will do, though, is in first quarter, we review the projections of all of our revenues, and it's based on trend information and information that we get to year end. This amount of money is based on projected trend from our friends in Treasury. And I have to say, Treasury is typically conservative, and they are, I will say that they are conservative in their thought process. They typically give us a middle road projection, not a high or a low, particularly when it comes to a brand new revenue source. That's how we treated marijuana, and that's how we treated fuel when they came on. And then we adjusted them in first quarter when we saw that activities were either better or not as good as originally mentioned. So that's the answer to the first one. I think we're pretty good shape. Number two, if we receive more money, what will happen is the money will go into a separate account. If the assembly, if those projections look good and we get to the middle of the year, the alcohol tax takes effect in February. We get into the middle of the year. If we want to add to existing programs, or we want to create a new program, we would then do a supplemental. We would ask the assembly, let's say for, I'm going to pick a number here. Let's say year-round camp cleanup. It looks like that we need we need an extra $50,000. The assembly would then do a supplemental appropriation to parks, identify the alcohol tax, and then that's how that would happen. Does that answer your questions?
That does. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, other questions for Lance on this? We've got about 6 minutes to go. You know, I personally, you know, I'd echo what Jonathan said earlier in his comments, but the, you know, that there, I think that the amount of thought and effort that's gone into this and the amount of vetting that's been done and the amount of expertise and input on it is really a pretty incredible thing. I think, you know, the right folks have weighed in on it. I think that the use of the funding is judicious and smart, and I believe it fits those three categories. I think it fits the voters' intent in passing the alcohol tax. I think that, you know, I believe that we've got a good plan here.
Lila, can you bring up the resolution? So, Mr. Chairman, members of the BAC, what this resolution does, I was thinking about combining these words with the budget, but I decided not to because the information that you guys have received on the alcohol tax has been a lot more recent. So with the information that I sent and based on the presentation that I just shared, what I created a resolution that has three basic areas. One, I talked about the work that you have done to date to hear about what's going on with the BAC or with the alcohol tax. The second one is recognizing that you saw sort of a first draft in Appendix R. We talked about that during the budget review. Many of you had some conversations about allocation. And then just as I expressed, as of last week, we had this revised resolution, and it just, that last whereas describes, you know, you've hopefully had a chance to review the material that I sent earlier. We just talked about it here on the revised use of the allocation through the S version, and that they're based on the comments and discussions between the Assembly and the administration, and that they're, you know, truly trying to balance the amount of money in those three categories, and that if you are agreeable to that, the process, where you were and where we are, then I would ask you to consider this draft resolution, and then I would then send this to the Assembly as well. I think it characterizes the general support of the allocation without being specific to programs and amount, but I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Do folks have, you know, suggested changes to this, or is there maybe even a chance we could get this reviewed and approved before we adjourn in the next couple minutes? I've read through it, and I like the language. I didn't have anything that I would suggest. I've got the document open on my screen as well. Alyssa comments that she's supportive. Is there anything else anybody wants to add, or is this something that we can make a motion and approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Right, is there a second?
Is that Alyssa?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this
Thank
is
you.
Alyssa.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Is there a second?
This is Lindsay. I'll second.
Thank you. Any opposition then to this resolution as drafted? Okay, I'm not hearing any opposition. Then I believe that we then I believe the resolution passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the BAC. I really appreciate the quick turnaround and the attention on this one. Anyway, this one got moved up. We were hoping that we'd have a couple extra days, but I will, Mr. Chairman, I will get this one revised and I will get it sent out to, actually, Lila, look for it from Lila, and to all the BAC members. When I have a signed version, we will send them to you as well. So I think that is all I have.
Very good.
Very
good.
Lila can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we scheduled this meeting until 1, but
Oh, did I? Am I wrong about that? Oh, it is
Yes,
until
it's
1.
until 1.
Oh, I am sorry. What am I? Wow. Okay. What am I on? Sorry.
No, that's fine. You had me caught off guard there. And we may get done at 12:30. Anyway.
Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to rush that. I just I guess our last meeting ended at 12:30, I think. So
Yeah.
so yeah, with that then on our agenda, we've just about powered through it. I think that, but talking about strategic planning is next.
I think what I'll do is I will connect with Alyssa and Jonathan and see what they would like to do. But obviously, we're going to do something a little bit more remote. And let me just talk with them on how they might want to proceed. And then I will talk to the commission on December 3rd and we'll formulate a plan.
Okay.
All right. Your next meeting on December 3rd, there's a couple things that we're going to talk about. One, I see that, remember, Andy mentioned that at the December meeting, he's going to be able to give you an update on how the school district's current FY20 year ends and their projections for 2021, sort of a framework on how they're going to be looking into the future on preparing their budget. They are moving into their budget season. Their budget is due to be delivered to the assembly the first Monday in March. So they're on that path right now. The other thing I think that we will talk about on December 3rd is Lindy may be aware of this one as well, but as it relates to APD, the administration is proposing a ballot initiative that would allow the voters to decide whether or not we should increase taxes for the single purpose of providing technology improvements to APD for their CAD system, basically which links to their dispatch, their reporting, and their body cameras. So the Assembly has a work session scheduled the 20th. I will send a link to you on that. I talked to Assembly Member Rivera. He would like the BAC to weigh in. He was hoping that you'd have a chance to do it before the 20th. I told him that you wouldn't, just because of the bandwidth. I think that following the work session on the 20th with the Assembly on the ballot proposition, the Assembly will take the matter up at their December 8th Assembly meeting, probably at the earliest. They may carry it forward into another meeting, but they have to decide whether to, on the language, and then whether or not to put it on the ballot. This is something that Chief Dahl has mentioned. They have a technology challenge right now, and this ballot would address those needs. So I will send you the link to the work session next week. If you're not able to attend following the work session, I will send you the link to the material and the YouTube. You can listen to it prior to our December 3rd meeting, and then I think that will be a topic of your December meeting. So I think I did send you guys a link of the material and the first work session on that. So if you're interested in the subject, please take some time to listen to that material. And if you didn't, let Lila know and she'll resend it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Lance.
And that is all I have. We will look forward to you. And again, Nolan, thank you very much. You've been very helpful to OMB, me, and kind of working through not only our strategic plans and implementing them through your leadership. It's really been helpful for me and us, and I know it's been appreciated by the Assembly members. So again, as expressed by the others, really appreciate your help to me and to our department. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. I think, obviously I've come to appreciate how much work you and OMB put into, running the Budget Advisory Commission as well, Lance. So I think that you guys put a lot of time and effort into this to make keep our business running smoothly, in addition to all of the other things you have to do to keep the municipality running. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I know that Alyssa will be able to do an incredible job. She's been very well immersed in BAC stuff and has been a very active vice chair up until now. So that'll be great. I think that so it seems like I think our business is concluded today. Then a bit early. Next meeting then is on December 3rd, and And I look forward to, hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving holiday. I know it's going to be weird probably with all the social distancing that's necessary, but wish everyone the best. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Carla. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Nobody wants to go.
Lindy wants to do it, but she's on mute.
I second that motion.
All right, thank you. If there's no opposition, then I think we can adjourn. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Nolan.
Bye.